Hi everybody, Captain Al speaking with your training tips designed to help make you a better, more knowledgeable flight simmer, pilot, or aviation enthusiast. Let's lower the HUD and see what is on the horizon for today. Our briefing today will cover a continuation of the line flight from Seattle-Tacoma, Ksea, to Anchorage, Alaska, Papa Alpha November Charlie. This is part 4 in the Boeing 747-8. Okay, we're in the virtual simulator for part 4, which is the descent, approach, and landing. We're coming in on the Ksea 6 arrival. It's the 10-2G chart, 9 February 18. 135.5 is the ATIS. DME is required. Altimeter is set in inches. Transition is 180, and we'll be coming in from the Juliet Oscar Hotel, which is Johnstown Point. That'll be the transition for the Ksea 6. When we get to Ksea, you can see it's expect radar vectors to final approach course. After Ksea, from there we'll be vectored for the ILS 7 right. We'll check the ATIS, but they were landing to the east. Some significant terrain in this area. You can see the minimum altitude we can expect in this area is 11,000 to Ksea, and then 8,300 toward the TED VOR, and then the terrain drops off rapidly. But you can see in this area there's some high terrain at 8,900. Coming down to the routing from over Ksea on the TED radial 101 to TED VOR, and then expect radar vectors to final approach course after Ksea. That's what we're expecting. And then we're right now the Anchorage ATIS. Looks like the current Anchorage weather is 0506 knots, 10 statute miles visibility, scattered clouds at 20,000, temperature 11 dew point 0, altimeter is 3000, and so they're landing runway 7 right. And if we go to the approach chart for runway 7 right, it's the ILS 7 right 11-2 for October 19. Final approach course inbound will be 111.3, 074 inbound, crossing Tully on the glide slope at 1600, going out down to a decision altitude of 332. That'll be 200 foot height above touchdown, 1800 RVR, or a half mile required for the approach. Minimum sector altitude to the north and west is 5600. To the east, and that's where we're coming in from, is 8,900, and then to the south and west is 1,800. And the event of a missed approach is climb to 600 feet, then a climbing right turn to 3,000 on a heading of 230, and outbound on the TED VOR radial 210 to Jukup, 15 DME, TED, and hold. We're going to be looking for an ALSF2 approach light system with a PAPI on the right side. DME is required. If we go to our 10-9 chart, we're going to be landing runway 7 right, 12,400 feet long, and we'll probably plan on clearing at either Gulf or possibly Echo, depending on where we turn off. We'll plan on going to a Kilo, and then making a right turn on Romeo, and then we'll taxi down to Tango, and then we'll go in the cargo ramp here, which is actually a UPS parking, but we'll go down to cargo parking and park somewhere in here. So it either could be coming off of Gulf and then making a left turn on Romeo. This is actually a little tricky here because this goes, it's very easy to miss this turn to Romeo. You could keep going on Gulf, and a lot of times they give you Gulf to Romeo, and then down Romeo all the way to parking. So we'll plan on that after we land runway 7 right. Now we're back in the virtual simulator, and we'll set up for the approach now. So we'll get the CDU, and we'll check the departure arrival page. We'll check the arrivals for Anchorage. We already put in the ILS 7 right. We were anticipating that. So that's in there. On the legs page, we have Wosox, Humpy. There's the JOH transition to Yeska. We'll say they've requested that we cross Yeska at 1000, so we put in that restriction. TED, VOR, and then route discontinuity, and then WEWO for the approach to Tully to runway 7 right. Our minimums are 332. I've got them set up. I'm using this PFD over here, so I've got them set up over here. 332 Barrow. We're going to be using auto brakes, 12,000 foot runway. We'll be using auto brakes 2. We can expect vectors after Yeska for the approach. We won't get to TED, I'm sure. Be vectors after that. And then from that point, we'll extend the line into WEWO for the approach, as long as we're on vectors. Go to NavRad page, we'll check our ILS. That was 111.3074 inbound. And right now it's parked, but as we get closer, it'll become active. Don't need anything in the ADF, so we're good there. And then we'll go to the inlet ref, select our VREF 30 speed for landing. That'll be 145. So again, when you do this, we normally go depar, check our ILS, legs, check if it's the way we want, NavRad, check the ILS. Everything up here is procedure tune, that's fine. We'll let this auto tune, and no ADFs required, like we said. And then init ref, check your weight. We're well below max landing weight, and we've got flap 30 set in. Then it's auto brakes 2. We set our minimums, we brief the approach, and then we're ready for we can be ready for the descent checklist at this time. So bring the checklist up, and let's go with the descent checklist. And we'll check recall. Let's move this a little bit. And push recall and check. No messages. And we'll check that off. Notes, we don't have any. They're checked. Auto brake, we have 2. Landing data VREF is for flap 30 is 145. Minimums 332. That'd be a dual response. VREF flap 30 145 and minimums 332. Both have to respond to that. And then approach briefing from the pilot flying completed, and descent checklist complete. And then we stow the checklist. And we're coming up on Wowox. We've still got another 98 miles from the top of descent. So we'll be back as we approach the top of descent point. So we'll say ATC says you're cleared to descend to 11,000, cross Yeska at 11,000 on the Yeska 6 arrival. So we'll set a lower altitude in the MCP at this time. If you didn't set a lower altitude, it would tell you reset MCP altitude. And if you don't reset an MCP altitude, then once it crosses the top of descent point, it would go into VNAV alt and hold that altitude of flight level 380 if you kept it there. So it tries to remind you when you get within close to the top of descent point, within 3 minutes, it'll say reset MCP altitude if you haven't reset it. Of course, you have to get clearance to get lower, and right now we do have that clearance. So we've set in 11,000 to cross Yeska. We're approaching the top of descent point. We will watch as that page goes active. Okay, we're back. We're within 4 miles of the top of descent point. We've got 11,000 set in our MCP. And you'll see as soon as we pass the top of descent point, you'll notice that the page is going to change automatically to the descent page. And you'll also notice that we'll get a path indication on our ND. The nav performance scales over here will also show the vertical path as well. And you'll see we just passed the top of descent, and now we've got a vertical deviation indicator on the ND. The path came alive. The navigation performance scale for the vertical path came alive. We're in VNAV path, and the airplane will start to slow to your econ speed of 256, and then start down. And you can see we're starting down at this time. The altimeter was 3000 in Anchorage, so we got that from the ATIS. So we're going to go ahead and set that in. And you can see that when we move that, it will arm it basically, so that when we get to the transition, then we'll go ahead and push standard, and that'll go to our altimeter 3000. And again, I've got it set on all three altimeters to do that. So you can see that just like on the lateral path, we have RNP and ANP for the lateral path. We also have RNP, ANP for the vertical path. The vertical RNP is 400 feet, and the ANP right now is within 159 feet, so we're well within the tolerance there. Here en route, the RNP is 2 nautical miles, and the actual navigation performance is 0.06, so we're well within that. And again, the vertical path right now is referencing to cross Yeska at 1000. Nothing here, so the computer's predicting it can make it. And we'll bring the range up a little bit so we can see Yeska. And there is Yeska. And we'll bring our... Let's bring our range up a little bit. Well, we know there's no weather. Actually, let's do this. Let's switch this to... we'll come out of weather here. I'm going to go into terrain, and we'll have him go into weather. Just because I know there's no weather in the area here. But we'll be able to check out some of the higher terrain as we come into Anchorage area. Fuel temperature predicted. Let's take a look at that one. What is that? Fuel temperature is predicted to be low after reserve transfer occurs. Note, if en route outside air temperature does not increase, the fuel may reach the low temperature limit after reserve transfer occurs. Okay, we'll note that. We could, if we wanted to, go look at fuel. And we did get the transfer of the reserves already. And our fuel temperature, is pretty cool, and then -21. So that should warm up here as we get lower. So we'll cancel that. We'll keep an eye on this fuel temperature. There from Yeska now you can see the speed deceleration circles. So the first one is where we'll start the deceleration, the second one is where we'll end the deceleration. Once we pass Teska, we'll say we're cleared down to 9,000. So we can set we'll cross Teska still at 1,000, and then we'll descend to we better make sure we can do that at Anchorage. There's some higher terrain there at 8,900, so maybe we'll maintain 1,000 for a little bit. Okay, we're back. We're approaching the transition level at 18,000, where we'll switch to 3000 on the altimeter, which is the Anchorage altimeter. There's transition level. And now we could do our approach checklist. And our approach checklist is altimeters, and altimeters are 3000 inches. And we both respond to that, and approach checklist is complete. You can see the temperature, the fuel temperature now is warming up. It was -23, now it's -18. So starting to warm up. Let's see if that message is still there. No, in fact, that message went away now. And normally center would then probably tell us somewhere around here to contact Anchorage approach on 118.6. And we'd say 118.6 for Anchorage approach. Qatari 44 Heavy, good day. So we'll switch that over. And then the Anchorage tower is 118.3. We'll put that in. And then ground is decimal 9. And then we call them Anchorage approach, Qatari 44 heavy. We're leaving 15,000, descending to cross Yeska at 11,000 on the Yeska 6 arrival. It's a Qatari 44 heavy. Roger, good afternoon. Radar contact. Cross Yeska at 11,000, descend and maintain 9,000. So we'll go ahead and set the lower altitude. In the we see we're going to make 9,000 or 11,000 at Yeska. We can see that from the green arc that was over the Yeska. Now when we go down to 9,000, I'll move away because this green arc is referencing what's here in the MCP based on your current vertical rate. And since we saw that we have that made at 1,000, then we could set 9,000 in there. The area of the high terrain is, kind of right in here, probably for the Anchorage area. Once we get further in here, then it drops off rapidly. And you can see now that for this range, 7,300 is the range down to 3,800, and most of it's off to here. Once we get pretty much in this area, then we're going to be being vectored out here, and then we're pretty much over flatter land. And now you can see we're approaching 1,000. Notice that fuel temperature is getting a lot warmer now. So we're coming up on the first deceleration circle. So at that point, it's going to start to slow down. We're crossing Yeska at 1,000. And you can see the bug went down to 240 on your PFD. And at the second deceleration, we should be at 240 knots at 10,000 feet. And this would be the end of the deceleration right at that point. See now the terrain's starting to drop off. Again, most of that higher terrain is right here. And notice the VNAV speed band went down to a much more narrow band now than it was before. It went up to about VMO minus 11 before. Now it's a range of 15 knots below 240 and about up to 255 is kind of the limit there for staying on the VNAV path. So here comes the end of deceleration. You're going to be at around 240, not exactly, but there's 10,000, 248. We're a little faster than target. But remember, it is tracking a path. And now we'll continue down to 9,000. And maybe the approach says now for Qatari 44, turn left heading 250 vectors for the ILS 7 right. We'll go to heading select, come out of LNAV, and we'll turn left to 250. And then maybe he says Qatari 44 heavy, descend and maintain 6,000. Descend and maintain 6,000, Qatari 44 heavy. So go ahead and set 6,000 in the window. And at this point, depending on your legs page, right now, if you look at your legs page, the next restriction here, you got the TED VOR. We're on vectors now, so we can extend a line. But your next restriction is the 1600 at or above WEWO. So that's kind of what VNAV is referencing here. But once you're off the path like this, a lot of times we go into flight level change because there's no real economy now to going down to 6,000. And sometimes this is what can happen. Your rate of descent can start to slow up quite a bit because it's trying to get you at WEWO at or above 1600, and we still have a pretty good distance to go to WEWO. So what'll happen is it'll start to slow your rate of descent. And of course, if ATC gives you a descent to 6,000, they don't kind of want you dilly-dallying here in VNAV. So once we're like this on radar vectors, we probably just go to flight level change to expedite down to 6,000. And now you'll see the rate of descent will start to increase now. Since we're on radar vectors, we can intercept the leg to WEWO, so we'll bring WEWO down, we'll bring it to the top. The inbound course is 069, so we'll put that in. And that'll extend the line into WEWO on the final approach course. And then we can execute that. And that'll give us a reference to the extended center line of the runway. You can see the terrain drops off very rapidly now. The blue dash line is inactive because that's your missed approach procedure out to Jukup. It's inactive right now, but when you push Toga, it will go active. And of course, this is your active segment for the approach. And if we go to the progress page, we'll see we're within 25 miles of Anchorage at this time. We're in flight level change. We're descending to 6,000. And maybe now he gives us further descent. Descend and maintain 3,000 Qatari 44 Heavy. Descend and maintain 3,000 Qatari 44 Heavy. So we'll go down to 3. And we could keep the speed at 250 or as assigned, or at 240, 250, to keep the speed up. It would be up to how you fit in with traffic. Sometimes they'll slow you down. They don't say anything. It's speed our discretion. You can see right now our cross track is 6.4 for the magenta line here, so we're 6 miles away from the center line of the runway. And we'll start to bring the speed back here toward the upbug. You can see the RNP's changed now to 1. And that'll progressively get lower as we come in for the approach. ILS approach, there's no particular RNP requirement because you have a localizer to intercept. But on non-precision approaches, you'll be checking that RNP for, depending on what you're doing, NDB approaches, of which there aren't too many anymore, are 0.6, and VOR is 0.5, and RNAV GPS will be 0.3 for the RNP. The ILS doesn't matter. And then maybe he descends us to 2,000 now, so we'll go down to 2. And we'll go flaps 1. And we'll slow down to our flap 1 speed. And I'll use the Boeing procedure and I'll put it right on the speed. And maybe we get a turn to base now of about 340. And we'll say we're going to be vectored by Thule. So we could intercept leg to Thule, put the 069 course inbound, and then he gives us a descent down to 1600 now. So we'll go down to an altitude of 1600. And we'll go flaps 5. And we'll set the speed for flaps 5. I'll put it right on the 5. I'm gonna, normally we'd arm the speed brakes when you go gear down flaps 20. I'm gonna do it now just because in the virtual simulator it's things happen a little bit quicker and it's hard to maneuver around with a camera sometimes. So I'll just arm it now.
2,500.
And as we come in, we'll keep adjusting the range down as we approach. And we'll turn right to a heading of, let's see, 070, we'll go 040 on the heading. And we'll be cleared for the ILS approach, runway 7 right, so arm the approach. We'll go to flap 10, and we'll set our speed for flap 10. And the localizer's live. Localizer's captured. And we'll probably go outside now. See what we got. Of course, we'd be looking outside the whole time, but it's hard to do that. And do things inside in the virtual simulator. We're 5 miles from Thule. And of course, they'd give us any speed restrictions if they had any, like maintain 180 to the marker or whatever. And then they say switch to the tower at Thule. So we'll go, just to simulate that, we'll go down there and switch to the tower at Thule. So we'll do that. And we'll switch right now, and we'll put 121.9 in there for ground. And then we'll get our 8 ND back up there. It's our FMC message here. Let's see what that is. Insufficient fuel. We're just reaching our reserve limit there. Okay, we know what that is. And we also would have brought on our lights at 10,000. We don't have any lights on here. We would have brought those on around 10,000. Okay, the glide slope's alive. We'll go gear down, flaps 20. We'll arm the speed brakes and we'll set our speed. And our missed approach altitude, we said was going to be 3,000. Let's see, there's the glide slope capture, so we'll go flaps 30. And we'll set our speed to, oops, not that. We'll set our missed approach altitude now to 3,000. And we'll set our speed to rough +5. The winds are sufficient enough. They're not strong. And we'll go outside again, and there's our runway. We'll go ahead and disconnect the auto throttle at this time, if I could find it. Disconnect the auto throttle.
1,000.
And we'll disconnect the autopilot. And we're clear to land. 1,000 feet. We're visual, so we have to be stabilized by 500 feet. We would do the landing checklist, but I don't have time to do it since I'm hand flying. But the gear's down, flaps are 30, and speed brakes are armed, so the landing checklist is complete. And again, you would have gone to the electronic checklist to do that, but I didn't really have time.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
The reversers are stowed. And we could stow the speed brakes. And that'll keep the airplane kind of rolling here. And there's those gorgeous hills of Anchorage to the east. And they are pretty. You're coming up on, yeah, we'll turn left, or yeah, left here on Gulf. And we'll make sure our speed is down to 10 knots or less is desirable. You can get away with 15 sometimes on a turn that's less than 90 degrees, but 10 knots or less is usually good on a dry runway. And there's runway 7 left. You see in the PMDG, this is still called 6 left, which is kind of out of date. So if we want to, we can bring our, we'll say they hold us short of 7 left. And we could bring our range down so we can see that airport map again. We didn't use it on the way out, so maybe we can use it on the way in, just to look at it. So we'll bring it down to the lowest range we have. And then while we're sitting here waiting for the crossing, and of course this is what I didn't do because I just don't have enough hands to do it, but that was the after, let's do this, auto throttle, yeah, we know what that is. We could push that again and that'll probably get rid of that. And that got rid of that. Go back to that, go back to that. Auto brakes. Okay, we shouldn't have got that message. And we would have done our, here's our landing checklist. So we'll go ahead and, just so we're back in the proper sequence of checklists, better set our parking brake. We'll reset this checklist, or not reset it, but we'll do an item override on speed brakes because they're not armed anymore because we didn't do it. But we did a landing checklist. We just didn't do it with the electronic checklist because of me wanting to hand fly the airplane. So that's that, and then we're set up for the shutdown checklist next. And then since we're clear of the runway, we're going to do our after landing procedure at this time. So the only thing the captain does is bring the speed brake down and turn his weather radar, or in our case terrain. I went to terrain, so I'll turn the terrain off. And that's all he does. And the FO, meanwhile, would come up to the overhead panel. I'll get rid of these instruments for now. And he's going to start the EPU. And then he'll come down. If we need engine anti-ice, we could turn it on now if we had icing conditions, but we don't need it. And then he's going to turn off all the lights. We don't need lights anymore. We might keep the taxi on, turn the strobe light off, and of course the beacon stays on. And then he's going to come down here, and he's going to turn his, he was in weather radar, so he's going to turn that off. And at this point, some airlines will turn flight directors off. The Boeing procedure actually is to do it as part of the shutdown. So you're actually taxiing in with flight directors on, which I don't particularly like, but we're using Boeing procedures today, so we'll just keep it like that for now. And then he comes down and he will turn the auto brakes to off. He'll make sure the captain got the speed brake in case he forgot. And he's going to go ahead and bring the flaps up. And then he can move down to the transponder. And then we'll put this on transponder for the ground tracking. And then that's about it. We can then go back outside. And maybe they say you're cleared to cross runway 7 left via Romeo to the ramp. And so we would cross runway 7 left and then pick up Romeo. This is where it's a little tricky right here, because if you're looking straight ahead and you can see that the inclination would be to go this way, but actually Romeo is this way. So we have to actually kind of make a left here to pick up Romeo. And this can screw up a lot of pilots. So what we're going to do, you see that yellow line going to the left, that's where we're going to take that line. And notice as we make the turn, hopefully Romeo's there. Yeah, there it is. See Romeo? So you have to kind of make this left more than 90-degree turn, and then you can pick up Romeo. The inclination is to go on Gulf there and miss Romeo. We're going to go Romeo Tango to the cargo ramp position. And then they'd say switch to ground. So we'd go ahead and switch to ground. Anchorage ground. It's Qatari 44 Heavy. We're taxiing via Romeo Tango to the cargo ramp. 44 Heavy, taxi to your ramp. So we'll taxi straight ahead. And while we're doing that, let's bring the map up just so we can look at that. I'll bring the PFD back so we have ground speed. And then we go back outside. So you can see here we're on Romeo. There's the other runway 3. No, it's not 3-2, I think it's 3-3. Yeah, it's 3-3 in Anchorage. I don't know why this isn't current, but it's not. And we'll continue to the parking area, which is actually a UPS area. And again, we'll pick up the speed just a little bit. Again, 20 knots is kind of a comfortable speed. 30 knots would be really hightailing it, but if you had a long taxi, you could go up to 30. And again, the center line is probably about right there. We usually tell people in the left seat to keep their right knee on the center line, and that'll keep you going pretty straight. But you can see it's pretty straight. If you weren't sure, you can always go outside and look at it. There it is, pretty much right on the center line. And we'll be back as we approach Tango. Yeah, we're passing Uniform, and I think the next one is Tango. Yep, there it is, Tango. So we'll turn into Tango, and then it'll be a left turn into the cargo ramp. And again, we'll slow down to about 10 knots or less. And we'll start our turn into the ramp area. And then we'll turn into the ramp area and get rid of this ND now. And we'll just park in front of one of the buildings here. These, I think, are UPS buildings. In fact, I think that's Anchorage operations for them, just off to our right. And if we had a marshaller, we'd follow his directions, or a follow me truck or something. And we'll just go ahead and angle it toward the building here. And we'll pull straight ahead. And we'll say the marshaller says, come right, come right, come right. Come right. And then he says, stop. We'll set the parking brake. And at this point, the FO is going to go upstairs. Make sure the APU is running. It is. We don't have external power yet, so he'll select APU generator 1. I'm going to leave 2 available so they can unload. And then he's going to bring number 4 to aux, and number 1, 2, and 3 to off. As soon as he does that, that's kind of my cue that I can go ahead and shut him down. So I'll shut them down, either 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, doesn't matter. Usually go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from that point, what the captain does, because he doesn't do too much, he just reaches up and gets his flight director off. And if we were using the EFB, we'd do something there, but we haven't talked about the EFB at all. And meanwhile, the FO has most of the stuff to do, so we'll turn off the seatbelt sign. As soon as the captain shuts him down, he's dinging, especially if you're on a passenger airplane, because everybody wants to get up. And then he'll come up and get the fuel pumps. This is all FO. Turn all the fuel pumps off. Get rid of that ND now. He'll bring the beacon to off. And then we'll go down, and he'll turn his flight director off. We'll select the status page to check for any status messages, in case any occurred. We'll come down here and turn the transponder to standby. And then, of course, we're waiting for the people to surround the airplane. And we could go to menu. We could go to FS actions. We could go to ground connections. And then, of course, at some point we're going to get the chalk signal that the chalks are in. And when you get that chalk signal, you can, FO would go up and turn the number 4 to off. And then the captain then can release the parking brake. You can leave it set or release it. It's kind of your choice. When the chalks are in, we'll release it. And then we'll say that we can request ground power here if we want to. We'll go ahead and request ground power. The chalks are in. And then we can call for the shutdown checklist. So bring that up. And we'll go to checklist, and notice it's parking brake, and the captain would say released, and then he'll go ahead and check that off, and shutdown checklist complete, and we can stow it. And then we'll go up to check the ground power. As soon as that's plugged in, we could switch over to ground power. And then we'll do our securing checklist. So now we've got external power, so we can go ahead and select external 1. If we wanted to, we could select external 2 as well. As long as the APU keeps running, it would power the main deck handling bus. But we're going to shut down the APU, and we'll leave external power on the airplane. So as a result, we're probably going to leave it just like this, since we're going to shut that down, so they can unload the airplane. And then we'll do the securing procedure followed by the securing checklist. So the securing procedure is to bring off the IRUs, turn off the IRSs, and then I've got it kind of cut off here, but I want to move up to the emergency exit lights. There they are. We want to turn those off. And then we want to turn all the packs off. And then we can do the securing checklist. So we'll come down here and do a checklist. And IRSs are off. And this would all be FO doing this and responding to it. IRSs are off, emergency lights are off, secure checklist is complete. And then we stow the checklist. And then, of course, you could turn down all your lighting if you wanted to. If we wanted to, we could turn off the EPU if we don't need it anymore. And we'll leave external 1 so they can unload the airplane. And then we can check the logbook. There's no status messages, and we can leave. Okay, that completes part 4. That's the line flight from Seattle to Anchorage. Thanks for watching.